Hi, everyone. I'm Marjorie Levine Clark. I'm Associate Dean for Diversity Outreach and Initiatives, and we're here to talk about CLAS Reads, which is our college-wide reading of Ibram X. Kendi's book, How to Be an Anti-Racist. We have a panel from across the college that I'll introduce as they speak. The idea for CLAS Reads came from Professor Faye Caronan. In addition to being chair of ethnic studies, Faye was also the Chancellor's Faculty Fellow for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and the Chancellor had identified Kendi's book as her choice for a university-wide reading, and different schools and colleges had already begun to undertake readings of the book. Faye and I talked about how we could make this happen in CLAS and what we named CLAS Reads would look like. We began discussions with Kristen Kang Salisbury, who's our continuing and professional education program manager, and we came up with the plan that's on the website, which was created by Tim Stalker, our webmaster. And we're encouraging a structure where people read a few chapters a month in the spring semester and discuss them in book groups that they either form themselves or we form for them through the registration process. Or of course, you can read the book on your own. We want everyone to sign up though, so we can get a sense of how many people are reading. And I really want to thank Kristen for the great registration setup, Tim for the wonderful website, Tracy Combe for helping get the word out, and Faye for collaborating on this great project, which I'm really excited about. So we had funds from the Dean, Pam Jansma, and Ethnic Studies, and Antonio Farias, the Vice Chancellor for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and my DEI pot. And with these funds, we were able to buy 100 books from Matters, which is a Black-owned bookstore, and we gave these books away for free. Students, staff, and IRC faculty are picking up those books as of this week. So I think Kendi's book is really good at defining the terms that are important to discussions about race and racism. He focuses both on how his own experiences shaped his understandings of racism and anti-racism, and on the larger structures of systemic racism embedded in policies. He also importantly provides tools for individuals to make change. And I think the book is good if this is the very first book you're reading about racism and anti-racism, and it's good if you've been involved in anti-racist work for a long time. Hopefully it can become the start of larger conversations and action in the college around anti-racist work. Reading one book is obviously not enough for any of us. So maybe we'll start our panel with Professor Caronan. Can you talk a little bit about why this college-wide reading is important to you?
Yes, thank you, Marjorie. For me, the college-wide reading is really important because I think it's important for us. As you said, this book really defines important terms in anti-racist work, and I think it's important for us as a group to have common definitions of terms. Like, what do we mean when we're talking about anti-racism? What do we mean by diversity, equity, and inclusion? That was one of the things that I heard quite a bit when I was the Chancellor's Faculty Fellows, that people had different definitions. They didn't know what the terms meant. So I think it's good to get a baseline and to get there together, not have someone telling you this is what these are, but to talk things through. And I also, what I like about the book and what is good about group readings is that it's kind of active and intentional work. You're actively talking about things, you're actively working about things. DEI work can often, it's emotionally draining, it's personal. And so it's good to be in a community and to builds trust, within the group reading that you're working with. And I think that we're in a society where you are always careful about what you're saying. You might feel vulnerable, and I think you might feel vulnerable, not feeling sure what you can and can't say. So creating these safe spaces where you can talk about these difficult concepts and be vulnerable. I think that's a really important thing to do in order to build the groundwork for being able to say, you know, there are things we need to change, and this is how we should do it. And lastly, what I want to say, why it's important to me, is that there's a lot of people who recognize that there are structural problems and they want to do something, but they don't know what those first steps are. And I think that this book gives you those tools. It gives you those tools to think about your own life and how to apply it in your own life, but also how you might then start to think about how you can apply it in your work and outside of your own personal life. So I for all those reasons, that's why I think that the college-wide reading of this book is important. And I think, as you said, Marjorie, it's, you know, one book read isn't enough, but I think it's a good first step, especially as the university is, you know, moving forward in its strategic plan, where DEI is one of its, you know, main focal points.
Of course, I put my mute on and then forgot to turn it on. The typical Zoom experience. Thanks so much, Faye. Maybe we could hear now from our dean, Pam Jansma, about why you think it's important and how you're doing the read.
Thank you, Marjorie, and thank you, Faye, for that introduction. That was terrific. So I think it's important to come together as colleagues, individuals, and community to have these uncomfortable conversations and to hear different perspectives. Clearly, the last few years have shown that we have a long way to go to both be and do better, and to listen and to change. For me, I've had the book for months and have not read it. I don't know why. I don't have an explanation other than I just haven't read it. So this gives me the opportunity and the time to do so. I'm reading it with a group, the associate and assistant deans for CLAS. I'm looking forward to it. Although we do discuss issues surrounding DEI all the time, I think this will give us a good guide and a means for talking things through more deeply than we have in the past. I also am reading it with my daughter, who I think will start a group with her friends and colleagues where she is. I don't expect brilliant breakthroughs and immediate answers. Rather, I hope we can take steps toward greater respect within our community and to celebrate who we all are, and just to come together as CLAS. So I'm really looking forward to it. And thank you, Marjorie. Thank you, Faye. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks so much for that. How about Lindsay Lavalle, who is a graduate student in the political science department and also works for our Disability Resources and Services Center.
Hi, good morning. Yes, and thank you again for the introductions and for inviting me here today. I was really excited to hear about this project. I think it's very important work. I will be reading it rather on my own. I wasn't really available to join the groups, but I am looking forward to doing this work and then speaking hopefully more informally with my colleagues here at Disability Resources and with my fellow grad students across CLAS. I think in particular, what was really striking to me is that, and I think Faye touched on this quite a bit, is that there are many people who really do genuinely believe in racial equality and see these kind of systemic issues in our society. And they also, I think, probably really consider themselves to be not racist. And that's a really good thing. It's a really good starting point. But it's something that Kendi's book is really good at articulating, and of course other works as well, is that there's a distinction between being not racist and being anti-racist. And that it's more than just something like a trait that you see in yourself. It's actually an active thing. It's an action based on our choices. And it's choices that we make day to day and moment to moment and you know, situation by situation. But it can be very overwhelming when you don't really understand, and it's very difficult to understand how systems of power work in our society to uphold systems of racism and other systems of oppression. And so why I think this is really important that we're coming together. And there's so many avenues in which we can participate and join. I feel like it's a very inclusive environment for all of us, is that we can start to have these conversations in a very safe and generative space. I think that something that holds us back from these conversations is that fear that we're going to say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing or offend someone. And rather than want to hurt people, which again is a very good starting point, not wanting to hurt each other is something we really need to cling to in our society in these changing times. But it precludes us from being able to really be vulnerable with one another and to do this work. And it's another reason why I feel that Kendi's book is a really good inlet into this, because of Kendi's ability to be vulnerable about his own experience with being complicit in upholding these systems and recreating the violences of oppression within his own marginalizations. So I'm very excited to be joining this project, and I'm really looking forward to collaborating and to all of the conversations in this very generative space that are to come. So thank you very much for having me.
Thanks so much for that really well said kind of vision of what this can do potentially. So I'd like to introduce Julien Langou, who's chair of mathematical and statistical sciences and also a professor in that department. Maybe you can talk about how you're reading this and thinking about the book.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So a few things. So we are trying to put a group together in math. And so we'll meet every so often, and I'll try to make this somewhat interactive with some leading question and some homework so that there is a pace to it, a little bit like a class, basically. But I'm really looking forward to it, and I think we got a good team. The team is very mixed, actually. So there is a full-time faculty, a part-time lecturer, part-time students. So very proud of everybody to pitch in as usual. We got a great department there, so that's good. And anybody, by the way, anybody is welcome. So I know that some people from math are not in the group of math, and I hope some people that are not from math can come in our group if they want. It's very open, very open. So a few things to insist on what the dean says on the fact that I think that as a faculty or staff of a university, we have a duty to do professional training on DEI issues continually. It's something that evolves, the state of the art keep on evolving, there is more and more literature, but also we also have to improve ourselves. And as a white male, I think I understood after a while that this is very, very important. I learned a lot with my 15 years at CU Denver. I started pretty low, and progress has been slow. And so that's the one thing that's one thing as well that the dean says is that it takes time, and we have to do this continually. So next semester, we're going to read this book, and this is great. This is great. I'm sure it will have an impact, but the impact will be, it takes time, and we should never stop and never think we are finished. And so that I totally support this. I totally support this for this reason. And as I say, I think if you work at the university, you're a faculty or a staff, it's a duty. You have to do professional development in DI on a continuous basis, period. There is no choice. So I'm really trying to motivate my troops so that we're all in, and trying to insist on that. And it does not have to be much. It needs to be something. And all the time, we have to keep on pushing. And it takes time to see the result. It takes time to see the result, but we'll see. That's one. And so then about the book, I love the book. I read it once with an audiobook. I'm not a very big reader. I'm from the mathematics department. If some people are like me, I really recommend as well to look at some podcasts or some videos on YouTube of Ibram Kendi. He's really a very talented speaker. He explains very well. You see the pedagogical aspect. When he speaks, you really understand. The book is probably one of the books that resonates the most for me personally in terms of anti-racism and racism. And this is mostly because the way he explains is very specific, and it already has been mentioned, is by definition. He starts with very simple definitions, and not sure if you understand mathematics, but mathematics, after a while, after studying mathematics for 10, 20 years, you understand that mathematics, the only way mathematics works is because of the definition. And if you have your definition right, everything works. So you can challenge the definition. You can challenge the definition of Ibram Kendi, but the reason why those definitions works after 200 years in mathematics, or maybe 10 years with Ibram Kendi, is because they are proved by success and by time. They are proved by time. So the work is great, very pedagogical, resonates a lot with me. It's very logical. So for a mathematician, I like it a lot. I heard you can be not racist, but you're not necessarily an anti-racist. A perfectly logical statement that I love my students in logic class would understand. They would have a hard time to raise their head about that. So that's beautiful. So that's it. So one lesson I've learned from Kendi that always resonates is that you should never tell to someone you are racist. You should always tell them you are being racist. So not accuse the inner self of someone, you are, but accuse their action, you are being. Very simple. What I like is that he identifies problems very clearly. He gives solutions. Everything is in the definition, so everything is logical. This is very, very solid work. I really respect the person for his work, but also as a scholar. It's an extremely well-rounded scholar work. So, I mean, as a university people, I think we should have an appreciation for both. And of course, the impact on DI on my end is huge. So I recommend anybody to be part of a reading group and to learn. And I read the book a little, but I'm still learning. So I really would like a second read with some people. So I look forward. I look forward to the semester.
Thank you so much. And I really appreciate your emphasis on continual learning. I think that's really important that, you know, I think all of us have said one book is not enough and that this is a continuous process, right? And, you know, I'm glad to hear that the book has had a lot of impact on you. So finally, we'll hear from Sarah Tyson, who is a professor and chair in the philosophy department.
Thanks so much. And I wanted to say thank you to everybody who has made this possible. I was really initially sad when I saw the announcements because I knew I didn't have time to do a group next semester, but then I went and looked at the website and you all have made it so that people who are reading the book on their own can still get a lot of interaction. And then every time I turn around at the college, somebody's now reading the book because of this program, whether they're formally involved or not. And so I just so appreciate this opportunity. I just think there's going to be a million conversations that we're not even aware of because of this program. So it looks like it's just a huge success as a formal program. And then I can just already see how it's shaping the college. And so I'm so glad I'm not going to be part of a group, but I'm going to be rereading the book next semester. And so I was trying to think about like, why am I so excited that other people are reading this book, right? And it's not just because of the information in the book. I agree with the assessments of other people about how effectively this book is written. He writes about his own experience, but then he has this amazing historical understanding of racism that he brings. So he shows that interaction between one's own inner life and the structures and the institutions and the cultures that we encounter. But I was also thinking about when we read a book, we develop a relationship with it, and it's in our head, right? We're reading in our head, and we are hearing the voice of somebody else in our head. And part of the value, I think, of talking to other people, especially about a book this challenging, is that you then get to hear about their relationship to the book, and it can transform your own relationship. It can really deepen your understanding, and it can make you rethink things or make you see things that you didn't know were important. And I think Kendi in particular gives us ways to think about sort of 3 levels of questions, which is how to see what's right in front of us, because racism's right in front of us all the time, and he makes this very clear, but it can be hard to see what's right in front of you. How to critique it, right? Because sometimes we can see a problem, but not know what the critique should be. And I think he gives us a lot of techniques and ways of thinking about how to critique racism and its intertwined problems. And then how to do something about it based on that critique. And so I just think the fact that he gives us so much to do all three of those things is going to have an amazing impact, and probably already is within the college, and within the university. So again, I really appreciate the way this is accessible, and supplying books to people is another point of access. Yeah, so thanks again.
Thanks so much, Sarah. And I saw that Julien has one more comment to make. Yes?
Yeah, I didn't. So I said that the book has a lot of impact on me, and this was repeated, and it's true. But I wanted to say one of the main impact, and I'm grateful and thankful about this book, is because I feel way more confident to speak about this issue now that I've read the book than before, and it's huge for me. It's huge. So I'm more confident because I got those definitions, and I got a clearer understanding. Before I would not dare to really speak about this. So if you're like me and are scared, I think it's a good book. It's a good book.
And that kind of goes to what Sarah was saying, I think, about these, that he clearly identifies, gives you these steps, right? Or it kind of is very clear in presenting a way to, giving you a way to critique and do something. So thanks for identifying that, Sarah. All right, well, this has been a great conversation. Please, if you haven't already, sign up. Go to the CLAS homepage, clas.ucdenver.edu, and you'll see CLAS Reads right at the top. Sign up in time slots, or form your own groups, or read by yourself. We, as we said, Lindsay and Sarah are both reading on their own, but obviously there's going to be a lot of energy, a lot of conversation going on throughout the college. So we're really excited, and I think this is a great kickoff conversation right here, just to see how people are thinking about the book already. So thanks, panelists. Thanks again to Kristen Kang-Salisbury, to Tim Stalker for the great website, to Tracy Combe, and to everybody who helped us provide those free books. I think I should also thank the Dean's Office staff, Karen Fennell, and the wonderful student assistants who are helping to give out those books right now. They've also been wonderful. So happy December in the 70s, yes. And we look forward to a great break and to a great spring semester with CLAS Reads. Thanks a lot.